Sup, guys. Mikey here for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Council with two persons of consequence that will later take the blame for my fall. We have Jonathan,
Hey.
and we have Rom, apparently my student.
Yay! I'm a student now.
Rom was
Oh my
pretty
god.
much, he was just in the call, and we're like, why not? We don't want him to feel lonely.
Let's start the bloodbath with a three-way. A three-way. I know someone's gonna make a joke about that. A three-way discussion. See, there we go. There we go.
He's up here to, Mikey, I don't know, you keep up with people.
You know what, Rom? Why don't you tell us what today's topic is for coffee time?
The new mechanic of link summoning.
Oh God.
Before we start, am I the only one who hears the name Link? I just think of Breath of the Wild. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
When
I did mention that in the stream. I was glad I wasn't the only one.
Every time I hear Link, I always think of a chain link.
That's what I think of.
All right. So. All right. So. Quick recap, guys. What is this new link summoning? What is it? What does it do for the game state? All right. Let's see. Link summoning, for you guys who don't know, it's the new method that you can summon a link monster. It is a blue-colored monster, similar to Rituals, but it's from the extra deck, and you can summon it by meeting the requirements, which are the two or more effect monsters or whatever it says. Like for example, you see on Synchro Monsters the summoning requirements. It's the same thing like that. Or this is where it changes. Or you can use a link number that's already on the field below that and use an effect monster with it. So, for example, if you have a link monster, a monster of link 2...
Decode Talker. Let's just use him as an example.
Decode Talker's link 3, though.
I know, I was just saying, like, use him as the monster you want to summon.
Yeah. For example, you want to summon Decode Talker, which is link 3, and you already have a link 2 monster on the board. You can use that link 2 monster and another effect monster, and you can place that new link monster, Decode Talker, into the extra monster zone. And we're going to talk about the entire game state change and the entire mechanic change and the entire player mindset change. But first, let's talk about this new summoning method. What do you guys think about it, Jonathan? Jonathan, first of all, what do you think about it? Come on, man.
Yeah, for me first. Okay, look.
Just go wild. Just go wild.
Well, I can't really go wild if I do mouse. Yeah, I can't go as fucking nuts. No, but like, when I first started this mechanic, I was fucking pissed. I'm not gonna lie. Like, because like it's an interesting concept. Like, I understand you gotta innovate. You gotta change things around. You can't have the same thing going in a game constantly because people hate repetition. They want to be challenged. They want to learn. They want to have something new, and in order to have fun. Problem is, this is something, in my opinion, Konami drops the ball in. I'm all for new mechanics, but I'm all for new mechanics that you're not forced to play.
What do you mean forced? Hold on. What do you mean forced to play?
If you, in a sense, you want to play a deck that requires the extra deck, such as Synchrons,
Black Wings.
But in deck requires an extra deck, you're kind of forced to play Link monsters because of the fact that you're limited to how many extra monsters you can actually summon during a game now, unless you have a Link monster on the board, changing the monster zones into extra deck monster zones. Therefore, you can't really do what you want to do in said decks anymore, forcing you to play Link monsters. Whereas in the past, you had the option to play Synchro monsters, Exceeds monsters, a Pendulum deck, Fusion monsters. You didn't have to play these type of monsters. You had the freedom to choose what you wanted to play. And I feel like Link monsters, it's a nice change, but forcing people to play a deck that they may not be wanting to is kind of a bad move, at least in my opinion.
That's pretty interesting when you think about it that way. And I will give you my counter arguments later. But for now, Ron, what do you think of this topic? Because we need to keep this civilized. We are barbarians, aren't we?
Well,
I'm the best barbarian.
There is no such thing.
Actually,
there's no such thing as a professionalism internet. Just saying.
God damn it, Jonathan. Screw you.
But when I first read about this mechanic, my mind just imploded on itself. Like, when I was reading it for the first time, I was kind of pissed off because, again, kind of a lot like what Jonathan was saying, how it seemed like you were forced into it. But then as I've read like a little bit more about it, and because this was just like, oh, I read one part of it, this is my thoughts, and then I would read the next, and then they would kind of change. So ultimately, I kind of like this new mechanic just because it makes card placement matter.
Ooh, contrasting opinions. I like it.
And because before, something that wasn't too enforced was the fact that a lot of players like to move their cards around just to kind of keep things tidy.
Right.
And now you can't really do that because of the link summoning mechanic. And with their new field spell. So.
I don't want to cut you off, but what he's trying to say, because some of you didn't notice, the link monsters, and I forgot to mention this as well. The link monsters have markers on every side and corner of them, which indicates the zone in which you can summon your extra deck monster. So there is one directly in the middle, up at top and bottom of the card, and there's the corners, all four corners, and two on the side, which indicate that you can only summon, what is it, three extra deck monsters?
It depends on your links.
Pretty much one
really
link,
and placement.
Links of one, you can only have one arrow. Links three will have three,
and
it can also help out your opponent if you have, let's say, Dakota has like an arrow pointing up towards your opponent. They can then have an extra monster in that zone, pretty much.
No, hold on. If I read this correctly, it says, hold on.
But
you guys
talk. The thing is, though, when it comes to like the two, I guess the extra deck zones, there's only two zones where you can actually have an extra deck monster. But once you have a link monster in that zone, you turn more. You can have more depending on which placement the arrows are pointing at. So if it's like the far right, like where the graveyard would be, towards the graveyard, you can have an extra monster towards that area, and vice versa.
So sorry about that. Had to go take care of something. So actually, getting back to what you were saying, I believe the link monsters. No. In the beginning of the duel, the link monsters do not belong to any player. It's only when
it's the link. It's the extra deck monster zones that start off.
Yes.
Yes, they don't. It doesn't belong. The zone does not belong to either side of the field until someone places a link monster, and then it acts like the field spell rule where it only applies to your field, which means if you have a link monster, if you're the first person to use a link monster, then that means the arrows will only correlate with your field, not your opponent's field.
Entirely, because
no, it's because there are some that actually point to the opponent's field.
Yes, and that gives your opponents the ability to
place a monster there
deck onto that field correlation. Again, Decode Talker has those three arrows, two pointing to the right and the left, one pointing upwards towards your opponent. It's pretty much a shared field, pretty much. The player can actually use these cards to advantage.
But you still cannot place your own monsters on your opponent's field.
No, you can't do that. That'd be kind of retarded, even stupid, and hilarious, actually, just them. But, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And you have to be smart about it, pretty much.
Ooh, so where do I stand on this? Ooh, the suspense. No, I'm just an average player. I would not know the precise details of this game state. No, I'm kidding. In my opinion, I would have to side with Realm on this one. That I kind of like this change to the game because, first of all, in the last 4 years that Yu-Gi-Oh has been played, there has been too much power creep, and a lot of people can agree with me on this. There has been too much power creep in this game specifically. I know, Jonathan, you talked about how before Link Monsters, the game was unique in its own way, and I understand. I know what you mean, that it had its own unique mechanics and stuff like that, but it's not like it's completely destroyed. It's not entirely gone. It's just you have to play in a way that is more strategic and more thought out than previously before. It's not like oh, let me just turn on autopilot. It's like you got to actually think about which synchros you're gonna do first, which monsters you're gonna summon first, how are you gonna burn your monsters out to get your link monster out. Like it's all these new changes to your thought process that can make the game a little bit more of a challenge to actually play.
Now, there's a couple things Konami actually can do to actually, in essence, make this a better mechanic Like for one thing, actually explain things better because they are horrible at explaining things.
Oh yeah,
That's like if you look at the
they
list, it pretty much reminds me of when they tried to explain priority back in the day. Anybody remember that? That gigantic list.
Oh,
I don't.
yeah.
Look up a
We're not
list.
supposed to talk about that. No. We don't talk about that. All right.
But
Back to
pretty much
this.
they don't explain things better. They don't really go into full detail, which is kind of bad when you have a big. Especially, it's one thing if it's like a new mechanic like pendulum summoning, which is easy to grasp. But something like this, you have to explain things a lot better because then you get a lot of confusion. You get people bugging you, and I felt sorry for anybody who's part of like the help center, the help service over Kanai. They probably can phone them right on how to do these things. But they need to explain things a lot better. For one thing, it's like they need to kind of better explain the extract monsters. Like, if you have an extract monster, and me and Rob were talking about this last night actually, is if you have an extract monster and like the monster zone while you have a link monster on the board. If that link monster is destroyed, what happens to the extract monster? Does it stay on board or does it get destroyed? It's something they need to talk about. They need to explain more, you know?
I believe the summoning conditions and requirements. This is alright. Logically, if we're talking about what happens, logically speaking, the monsters must stay on the field because they were summoned with proper conditions.
Yeah, but you do know. But remember, this kind of talk about they are known for making the bullshit rulings.
That's true.
So, it's
but
like,
keep in mind.
No. It's basically just like confirmation is all like, and I'm saying it's like this is the ground set rules. This is what happens.
Well,
just confirming.
We actually have.
You know?
There is confirmation here. It says, and I quote: "Extra deck monsters, fusion, synchro, etc., cannot be summoned to the main monster zone without link monsters." Now, that doesn't say that once the link monster is destroyed, the extra deck monsters are destroyed. It just says you are not allowed to access your extra deck without a link monster on the field, and that's basically the mechanic of link summoning. So they have, logically speaking, they'll stay on the board, and if Konami defies that logic, then they're gonna have all their customers up their ass.
Well, they already have customers up their ass to begin with, so it's a little bit more.
And to be fair, on your on what you said about how they explain things, this is the only biggest game change that we have seen since, like you said, the priority explanation. And this is even bigger than the priority explanation. So I don't expect them to explain it well. I can't say I expect the players to be competent enough to understand, but there's got to be someone that can explain it properly.
I expect them to explain it better because, for one thing, it's their game. It's their job to kind of explain these type of new mechanics to the player base.
That's true.
Instead of keeping things a secret, you know, like, you know what, it's kind of like, oh, here's some stuff now, but we keep things later on because everybody wants to know everything right here and now. They want to know it so people can start proxying, or they're already doing it, proxying cards, testing with things, trying to figure out what to do with decks, but it's hard to test things out if you don't know fully what's going to happen.
I do want to mention that there are some people who think that, like, if you wanted to summon a link monster with tokens, you couldn't.
Exactly. Is that confusing?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like how the link summoning mechanic sounds, like when you're summoning the link monster, it sounds a lot like how you would summon a synchro monster.
Right.
Because of this.
It does. It says 2 or more, whatever. You have to send them from the field to the graveyard.
Yeah, but I mean, like, also to, like, the rules overall for it.
But it depends. Well, it depends on how they go about tokens for this summoning. Because remember, for synchro summoning, yes, you can use tokens. They're not considered monsters, but they're considered material requirements.
Yeah.
But in terms of exceed summoning, you need a full-fledged card that can be designated monster.
Yeah.
And that's why old trap monsters can't be used. Mm-hmm. They need to have that specification like Prime Monarch does, like the Paleozoic traps do.
Yep.
Like, oh, this monster is treated as a monster, not a trap.
All right, so that's about it for Link Monsters. Closing thought. Not closing thoughts. But you have
one more thing.
No. I'm not saying it's closing thoughts. I'm saying before we get to the next mechanic change, which is the pendulum change.
Okay. Well, I wanted to make one quick, fast note about one other change they could make with the link mechanic to improve it better for everybody in a sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is to one thing, increase the extra deck size, please.
Well, that I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine that has to be expected. I feel
But
they
the thing is
must.
though, they need to do it because it's already hard. Anybody who's ever played a deck that uses both synchros and exceeds knows it's hard enough to really
Right.
balance it out, trying to
Right.
get the best of both. It's really difficult. And then now adding on top of that with the link monsters, it's going to be even more difficult. So they have to increase the extra deck to at least 20, maybe 25 to allow people
I feel like 25 would be too much, in my
just give
opinion.
the range 20 to 25. It's just a range.
No, I feel, in my opinion, you are right. You are right 100% because the extra deck has not changed from 15 for a while, and that's because things like fusion, synchros, and exceeds were manageable
Yeah.
with three summoning tests. But now we have something that we need to actually summon these monsters. So I'd say 20 is a good number only because you can have like Link 4, Link 5, Link 6, or however Link number you want to correspond with your deck because pendulum monsters, depending on how you play pendulums, can bring out an easy like Link 6 monster. It's not hard for
it's not hard at all.
some pendulum decks because metal foes they have to destroy their stuff and they can't use it after that. But something like magician pendulums, they can do a lot of work with like monsters.
Do keep in mind on your metal foe argument, you do have Gofu, which is 3 monsters right there.
Well, again,
assuming you can use them.
Assuming,
that's
right?
The assumption that Gofu will allow you to go for your lower.
And who knows? And who knows? Maybe we can see. Maybe in the future we can see Link monsters corresponding with archetypes, which would be interesting to see, and maybe it'll make things easier for the game.
Most definitely.
All right. So yeah. So what's the next topic? Oh yeah, the change to the Pendulum Zone. If you guys don't already know,
I have
now instead of the Pendulum Zones being on the sides, you're fucked because well, not really fucked, but now they are considered. No, I don't want to say that because now they are considered part of the spell and trap card zone. So let's say, oh, Jonathan's having fun with this one.
With this one.
So let's say you set a card in one of your pendulum zones in the spell and trap card zone. Just for the record, it's in the leftmost and rightmost spell zones.
Basically, next to your extra deck and deck.
So let's say you set one in the leftmost zone. That is not a pendulum zone anymore. It's a regular spell zone.
Yep.
Until you get rid of it, you cannot use your scales. Period. Which means pendulums have been limited and they have been reduced in terms of the power that they can dish out.
They can basically just only have 3 spell and traps active at one time.
Now, I saw this coming to an extent because like me and Jonathan talked about this in the previous speculation coffee time that every time a new summoning mechanic comes out, they will limit the availability of the previous summoning mechanic. So, what do you guys think about this? Having the change to the Pendulum Zone, I personally, I think it was a bit over the top because
understatement.
I mean, not over. All right, not over the top. Fine. I will redo. All right, so I'd say it's like a low blow. Because pendulums have only been out for not too long, and
for about 3-4 years, something like that.
I feel like pendulums
it's actually less.
The worst end of the deal when it came to nerfing a mechanic.
Yes, definitely. Because
Synchros only lost a couple of synchros and
Exceeds didn't lose much.
Exceeds didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
Really?
It's like
Lava Chain. Like okay, that's not really a huge loss. Exceeds.
It's like they wanted to completely destroy the fact that pendulums existed in the first place. Like they were saying, "Oops, this was our fuck up. Let's fix it with something."
It's also more the fact that they want a fast start. They saw how slow they start with your pendulums. Granted, just because your first pendulums were pretty shitty, Konami. That's kind of how it was. No one to play it.
Yeah, but decks like Pendulum Gadgets and Pendulum Scraps were so overhyped through the internet.
Exactly.
And yet no one really took them to any events, which was really sad.
Yeah, but it was a very slow start, and Konami doesn't want that slow start, and they are afraid that if they had kept Pendulums at their strong power, that no one will play the Link Summon mechanic, and they would just go Pendulum and just go like, I summon 3 Apex Avion. Fuck you.
I
Pretty
mean,
much.
in my opinion, I feel that could be the case, but again,
It's-
it's limiting their extra deck, and that's what Konami's trying to do ultimately. They're trying to
it's the
say, all right, we'll give you Pendulums, but we won't let you utilize it to its full potential with an extra deck.
It's decreasing the power Pendulum so they can push the new
Right.
product, so people want to buy the new product. It's just a typical business strategy of.
I don't feel like that. I don't feel like pushing the product was an issue, considering how much of a game changer this was.
No, but here's the thing: when you are comfortable with something, okay,
Right.
you're going to continue to use that until something happens to it. That's just a trend that we humans have.
Infinity's.
We're not a huge fan of change at times, you know.
Yeah.
We want to do what we're comfortable with. So this is
Which is-
basically them saying, you know what, comfortable Pendulums, but we don't want you to use them. We want you to use this new tournament mechanic, so we're going to hit what you're comfortable with, but not like do it by abandonance wise. Just kind of hit the mechanic pretty much.
Which is why I call it a low blow to the mechanic.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a very bad low blow too.
I actually have an argument to both of that, to all that.
Oh,
Okay.
you're speaking up to the master now. No, I'm kidding, guys.
Alright.
Okay,
All
so
right.
we know that basically you have your 2 pendulum scales and 3 spell trap card zones for
Yeah.
pendulums, basically.
Right.
So keep in mind, in your opening hand, you have 5 cards. So you can place your 2 cards in your pendulum zones, and then you have 3 cards to work with, which could be like 1 monster, 2 traps, or just 2 monsters, 1 trap. It's not really going to affect pendulums all that much in the initial turns.
Well,
It depends
So-
on what Pendulum deck you're playing. If you're playing Magic Specters, then you're gonna have a
Yeah.
hard time doing that because you love
Magic
back
Spectre.
row.
Keep in mind, Magic Specters did need to get nerfed
I'm not saying they did.
because
I
when
played
they're
Magic
dropping
Specters.
5 back row a turn,
I
Alright.
played
When they
Magic
drop-
Specters, so yeah.
yeah, and I play metal foes, and I don't really use my
I don't know, it
spell and trap
depends
card
on the deck you're playing.
that
all right.
much.
So wrong. Yes, Jonathan is right. It depends on the deck. It depends. No, it's not. It's not on the deck you're playing. It depends on the Pendulum archetype you're playing. Let's
Like,
be
for
more
me,
specific.
I like playing Machine Pendulums, and I don't really play a lot of backer outside of my Solemn Stories.
Yeah.
But it's
In
like,
terms, all right. If we're gonna break it down in terms of Pendulum archetype, let's do this. Magic Specters, right? You
Yeah.
don't technically. Well, to an extent, you don't need the extra deck. You can just burst down your opponent with the Tempest, with the Tornado, with the Cyclone. You could just go for attacks with, and then use Kieran to its full potential.
Assuming
And when
Kieran doesn't get banned in the next list, but yeah.
Well, considering Pendulum's mechanic get hit, I cannot see Kieran. I cannot see
still
Pendulum
can
getting.
because it's just still very powerful. Even
It's
with
still
this
a very
mechanic.
powerful card.
Even in this new mechanic, the limitation of pendulums, it's still
Maybe.
a powerful
So
card.
think about this: you summon Kieran. Your opponent you have Kieran on field. Your opponent summons their Link monster. Use Kieran's effect on the
Bounce
Link
back.
monster.
Well, then your place dead.
Yeah.
Then if we're going by that logic, then Kieran has to get banned.
Exactly.
But also, if you're going by that logic, then every card that bounces, monsters have to get banned.
No,
as
no,
well.
not
but the fact
necessarily,
that you can
because
bounce
it
back-
has to be spell speed too.
Exactly, but you can bounce back.
But
a
keep in mind,
Pendulum monster
Kieran
and
is
reuse that
also-
Pendulum monster pretty much. Is kind of what's getting at. It's the reusability.
Kieran is
Kieran
also
gives
kind
you
of hard to
that.
get rid of.
Exactly. It's like hard to get rid of
Because-
the fact that it's allows you to reuse its targets that it bounce back.
That's
But-
true.
So it's
I'm not
pretty
saying-
much Brionic
Yep.
2.0. Let's just call it that.
Well, Rip Rio.
I'm not saying,
never
I'm not
coming
saying
back.
it should get hit or not. I'm just saying
has
it
a
could.
likely- it has a
It's
chance.
So, all right. So back to the topic at hand. Magic Specters. If you use a Magic Specters, you don't need to necessarily use it as an extra deck. Now, if we're talking about a deck that Pendulum deck that utilizes the extra deck, let's talk about Metal Foes, because that deck is still being topped along with Zodiacs, and
Yeah.
if Link Summoning, when Link Monsters come out, that deck for sure I can say is going to die, because they rely on. It depends, but it depends on the variant they're running. Let me say it that way.
well.
because-
Let's break it down real quick. Metal foes can go Ultimate Zulkin.
Yes.
which I don't think they run that build anymore. I'm not too
No.
sure. But they also can run the Cyber Dragon Infinity.
Yes, but remember, we're talking about under the conditions of link monsters.
Yeah.
And if they don't have anything, if they don't have Gofu or anything to like destroy themselves, remember they still have to destroy their own Pendulum monsters to gain their effects.
Yeah.
So without the link monster on the board first, they can't utilize the face-up Pendulum monsters in their extra deck.
Yeah.
And ultimately your Metafold combination, your Metafold's fusion, and the other trap card.
Your combination, like assuming
Oh,
if
no,
you
no,
bring
counter,
back
counter,
a fusion,
counter.
if you bring back a fusion monster, it goes into the main monster zone.
Yeah, I was trying to remember
So,
counter, not combination. Counter.
Yeah.
So that means, in a sense, Metafolds cannot get their fusions out without the link monster. It's a necessity for their deck to work. So what do you guys think about this? Well, Jonathan, you voiced your opinion very heavily, but I want to hear more. I want to hear more.
In terms of the Pendulum stuff, like I know why they did it. By a business standpoint, they kind of had to.
Yeah.
Because again, why would I want to use the link mechanic if I can spam out shit, from my hand?
Right.
But it's like, I know why they did it. But I also am not a fan of it because, in my opinion, it feels like a punishment for playing a deck you like to play. Like you're being punished, like you going in timeout for doing something bad. That's pretty much what it feels like to me. It's like, oh, I want to play my Bishop Stones, I want to play my Metaphors, but oh shit, I can't because I'm limited to what I can do now.
I don't see it as a punishment, to be honest. I see it more as a trade-off.
It's a trade-off.
Because keep in mind, your Pendulum monsters can keep coming back.
Yeah, but to me, it's like. You're limited what you can do in terms of your spawn trap card zone, and it's like, well, I want to play this deck, but now I have a limited spawn trap card zone, which is like, for a player like me who loves exposing traps, like he loves
I think everybody does.
Well, I always love going stunny with my decks to an extent, like having controlling aggressive power in terms of a deck.
Yeah, I know about your Quaking Mirror Forces.
Yeah.
Hold on, Johnson.
It puts a negative light on me personally in terms of the fact that it kind of prohibits a lot of different play styles, in my opinion, and it's like it kind of pushes people. In my opinion, it's going to push more people away from Pendulum, which is not the way you want to do things. Like you really want people to want to play all kinds of decks. That's what makes Yu-Gi-Oh great. Is to see all kinds of different things.
Hold on, Rom. I have an argument. You said something about. I'm sorry. There was so much conversation. Pendulums. What were you saying? I'm sorry. Pendulums.
Pendulums can keep. I think
they can keep out. Right. Yeah, there was so much context there. That Pendulums can keep bringing themselves back, but remember, in the like 2 to 3 years that we had Pendulums, there have been so much counter to them, to make them like less accessible. We had Ancestral Fragrance. We had Dimensional Barrier. And yes, these are expensive cards, but again, they worked.
And we also had Twin Twisters.
We had Twin Twister. We gained that off Pendulums. We gained Cosmic Cyclone. We gained a lot of stuff to counter the effects that Pendulums go to the extra deck when they're destroyed. We even had Pendulum Hole, which banishes them. So,
I don't think anybody's ever used Pendulum Hole, though.
It's still...
It's a
whole.
Oh yeah.
No,
but one guy in the comment section, but like, I use Pendulum Hole
every time.
No, but Ron, remember, it is a whole trap card which can be used with Quasia.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying. I haven't heard anybody actually use it.
No, it's usually like Floodgate or Bottomless. Or something.
Yeah, but I can't really see it as a trade-off because we already had the trade-off when we gained the cards in the first place. The trade-off for Pendulums was the counters, and there was no trade-off when Pendulums came out. There was no trade-off with Exceeds. They did nothing to Exceed monsters. They even gave us.
It just actually powered up the Exceed monsters.
They even gave us Utopia the Lightning.
Yeah.
From the anime. So I don't want to hear this.
No, what I'm saying is on a trade-off is like, as the mechanic by itself, it would be a trade-off.
I don't consider this a trade-off. I just consider it a major hit to the mechanic in general.
I mean, there is also a bunch of cards out there that can also get around, the Twin Twisters, like for instance, Starlight Road. Everybody's running Twin Twisters.
All right.
Why
So
is
what?
no cards like this?
All right. So I have a question for you. How do you answer to card effects that will prevent you from using the Pendulum Zone? So, like for example, there is a few cards that say these two spell and trap card zones cannot be used as long as this card makes fixed up. So how do you deal with the fact that if you specifically choose those two targets, your Pendulum Zones are locked, as well as your normal spell and trap card zone? How do you deal with that? You would have to,
first you have Archfiend Eccentric.
Yes.
Just right off the bat.
No. They cannot be used. So you cannot
right.
you put them. You cannot place them as gifts.
I'm thinking of the old zones.
Yeah. So you would have to use
stuff like
something
Twin
that's
Twister, Cosmic Cyclone, MST.
But
you can use stuff like that. And then at the same time, there are some monsters that also can just pop spells and traps, depending on really what you're playing. So.
But I'm saying before this, we didn't have this kind of situation where they were, but because now Pendulum cards are now considered spell and traps, which means they're vulnerable to way more than we thought beforehand. They are full-on spell and traps. They are not. They are pendulums, but
name a card that actually prevents the two zones from being used.
Yes, there are cards like that. There are cards like that, and
I know. Ground Collapse that doesn't work on spells and traps.
It works on the monster zone, but there is. Yeah. I can't remember the card, but it is a card that prevents you from using two spell and trap card zones. And if you target the leftmost and rightmost, your Pendulum Zones are locked.
Because I know there's like Who Zing Who or something like that.
I think that's the one.
No, then you couldn't be able to do that because that actually targets spells and traps, preventing them from being activated. Yeah. Up to 2 of them.
Well, it's a card. I don't know which one it is. It's a card.
I know, but I mean,
someone can help me out on that in the comments.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I think that's about it for this bloodbath of a discussion. I feel we could go more in depth with it, but I don't want a 41-minute video.
Oh, I would like a 41-minute video.
Rom, control your emotions. Bad Rom.
But it's more content.
All right, so closing arguments, closing comments. What do you guys think about the entire game state change, the entire mind concept? Because this is going to be like discussion video until I lost my train of thought. This is going to be the topic for a little bit of time until the mechanic actually drops. Right?
I feel like this is going to be a mechanic that sort of is going to have the exceed effect, where you have some decently good exceeds, but no one really used them a whole lot outside of a couple of decks until we start getting better exceeds and more decks that based around exceeds. And I feel like it's the same thing with the link mechanic, to where at first it's not really going to be played that much. Maybe no CG, but in TCG I don't think it's going to be played a whole lot until we start getting more better link monsters and a better grasp understanding of the link summoning mechanic, and where people have had more time to experiment with the mechanic and figure out how to implement this into maybe newer decks, new creative decks, and maybe some older decks, that people may like to play.
Yeah. Oh, hold on, Jonathan. I need to make a prayer to Konami. Konami, please don't make a Link monster equivalent to Cleveland Towers. I'm begging you.
Let's not have a repeat of that.
You're asking Konami, who always breaks the mechanics. You know it's going to happen. And it's going to start off slow, and then all of a sudden they're going to bring out a deck that completely breaks the mechanic, and then everybody's going to be complaining, this fucking sucks.
I'm an optimist.
You destroyed the game.
I'm an optimist. Ron, what do you think of this? What are your closing arguments?
My closing arguments? Oh God, there's 50 billion of them.
Okay, I'll pick one of the.
Okay.
Justin, pick one out of his brain. Pick one out of his brain.
Your 50th closing arguments. And this one that has like 90 subcategories.
Oh, they generally kind of do, but that's beside the point.
All right.
For the most part, 2. I do actually like this mechanic because, first of all, card placement matters.
Yes.
Second, I think the one thing that we kind of forgot about Link monsters, like Decode Talker, is you can sometimes for some of them, they have effects to where you can tribute one of your monsters that are linked to it to gain their effects. So I feel like it's a combination between synchros and exceeds.
Well, just for the record, and I don't want to cut you off. Just for the record, people in like Japan have already started playtesting, and there is a new loop that involves link monsters to summon Quasar still.
Yes,
and
there's
it's
under
I saw
that
one of
you
them.
can use tokens though as a thing.
no. I believe it was no. It was regular monsters.
One with Gofu and Level Eater and stuff to where it was.
I saw one with
But that was still the regular. That was the regular Quasar loop, but they found a way to summon the link monster normally, like legitimately with 2 effect monsters, and then they went into Quasar. It was like a chain. It was like a new chain synchroing.
Yeah.
Like that we saw in the days of old. All right.
Well, we could still play the stuff like Quasar,
Yeah.
and honestly, I don't feel like this mechanic will slow down the game too much because I've seen even Zodiac still go off with Link.
People are saying this is gonna slow down the game. It's gonna do a minor, maybe a smidge, tiny smidge, just slowing down, but
It's just adding an extra step into doing
No,
all
I-
your combos.
pretty much.
In my opinion, and this is my closing argument, I guess, since Ram, I believe you're done. I will assume you're done.
I'll assume I'm done too.
Well,
I'll let you say something.
I think you're both wrong. I think it will slow down the game to a major extent because that was the point of this entire thing, to slow down the game. And for now, until Konami finds a way to break link summonings, like Jonathan said, to break that barrier of safety. But until then, it will slow the game down. People say Zodiacs are already dead because of this mechanic.
Oh no!
But
no,
I
no,
don't- I don't
they
think-
can abuse it. They can abuse it.
They can abuse it, but people have told me it's dead, like professional people. So
It's
I don't know. We'll see. We'll
it's
see.
like the older way to play Zodiacs is sort of gone, but
I guess
you
so
can
because
easily bring out these
Yeah, I know.
Keep in mind, if you open up with like Terror Top, you could still go off because you can pretty much
Yes.
use that to go into your link,
Oh,
and
definitely.
then you
I
can go
feel-
from
Right.
there.
right, but I
There's still a
feel.
history made to the deck as well, just to
Right.
kind of prohibit it from the link summoning mechanic.
But yeah, I feel this is gonna slow the game down a big extent because we still have a lot of counterplays to the link monsters being immediately summoned because they're still monsters and they're susceptible to all the effects, all the counters to monsters. Except
Speaking
for
of that,
except
they
for-
actually have a trap hole card specifically for link
Yes.
monsters.
I saw that.
That was to be expected, to be honest. Since they have
Yes,
all the
that is
tools.
coming out in the new set code of the Duelist, which will talk
Yeah.
about another time.
I'm
yeah,
just gonna sit
like-
here and play Yusen Juice.
It's not gonna. I don't feel like it's gonna break the game or destroy the originality that Yu-Gi-Oh had. I just feel like it's the most balanced I've seen, in my opinion, of a summoning mechanic for some time now.
This mechanic, the thing is, I think this is what I called it a couple times. It is a pseudo set rotation to an extent.
Yeah, which is why I want to consider it in a form of balance for the first time in this game.
They're just not gonna last long because you know how Konami is.
Of course, it won't last long, but
They gotta break they always have to break the new toys.
this is like the calm before the storm. There you
Pretty
go.
much what it is.
So, make sure to comment and subscribe. This was a long video. I hope you guys enjoyed this whole discussion. So, yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below. Please, your comments matter. I love answering them. I love hearing your arguments. Thank you, Ron, for joining us. And now go back to your Play-Doh, please.
I joined you when?
Our replay subscriber showcase slave has to go
Yeah.
back and get us replays.
Right. Now, go like us on Facebook.
Actually, at this point, Jonathan over there needs to be uploading that today.
I fell asleep Sunday. I apologize. I was tired.
Oh, that was funny.
Yeah, so you're getting 2 videos today.
Oh, my
Well, I
God.
have to record this one first because I didn't leave my job until like
All right,
4:30.
leave this for later. No fighting. No fighting. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and please subscribe if you're new to our channel. We go like us on Facebook. All the links are in the description. We now have a Twitter. Please follow us on Twitter. All the videos will be tweeted out immediately after uploading. And go vote for what deck you want to see on this week's live stream featuring Jonathan Barbarian and Rom the
Barbarian, thank you.
Rom the Doofus.
Yay! The best title ever.
Don't worry, guys. Do they know I'm joking, or are you?
Do I? Do I really?
No, Ron
See,
doesn't know.
I'm screwed. I'm screwed. All right. Well, that's about it. So I'll see you guys later. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Peace.